Irentel seems peaceful on the surface. People go about their daily lives, merchants hawk their wares, and adventurers recount their daring deeds in the local tavern. Laughter echoes through the streets, carried on the wind along with the scent of baking bread and wood smoke. But behind tavern doors and guarded gates, people whisper of rising undead, political tension, and one name that keeps coming up: Momen, the dark warrior who walks beside death but protects the living. Ainsul Gown stands in the center of the bustling market, seemingly lost in the vibrant chaos. His over-the-shoulder bag swings gently, a stark contrast to the frenzied energy around him. Although he appears relaxed, his senses, heightened beyond those of an average human, are keenly aware of everything happening within a several dozen meter radius. The faint clink of coins, the soft murmur of bartering, the rhythmic clang of a blacksmith's hammer, all these sounds weave together into a symphony of everyday life. For someone like Ains, even the subtle shift in a merchant's tone or the twitch of a passerby's eyebrow can convey volumes. Nothing escapes his notice. His current mission, however, has taken an unexpected turn, leaving him with more questions than answers. And so he stands there, letting the ambience of the city wash over him, searching for answers amidst the chaos. Suddenly, a small movement at the edge of his perception catches his attention. It's a subtle shift, almost imperceptible to anyone else, but Ains, with his extraordinary awareness, spots it immediately. A change in posture, a barely perceptible narrowing of the eyes. Someone is watching him. He doesn't turn to look though. Instead, he withdraws slightly, continuing to blend in with the crowd. He doesn't need to see who it is. He knows exactly who it could be. The Great Tomb of Nazarick. After days of uneventful travel, the Adventurers Guild had assigned him and Nabe another task. Strange monster activity had been reported near the outskirts of town, disrupting the peace and posing a potential threat to travelers. While such missions were usually handled by lower-ranked adventurers, this time the guild seemed to have taken a different approach. Perhaps due to the recent incidents with the slain theocracy, or maybe simply because they wanted a quick solution to a growing problem. Either way, the job had fallen to Momen and Nabe. It was hardly a challenge for Ains, but what intrigued him was the underlying mystery. He had a feeling that whatever the guild considered a simple monster infestation was more than met the eye. And he wasn't wrong. As they approached the troubled area, Ains and Nabe found clear evidence of a sinister hand at work. The slain monsters were organized, not mindless automatons. Their positioning suggested they were under some kind of control. It reeked of sabotage, someone's malicious design. While Nabe, ever loyal, stood ready to fight, Ains continued to observe, pondering the bigger picture. This wasn't just a random act of violence. Someone was testing them, probing for reactions. And Ains was determined to play along. To him, this was about more than just slaying monsters. It was about understanding the forces that lurked beneath the surface of this seemingly peaceful world. In a world where danger often lurked around the corner, Ains and Nabe weren't just a formidable duo. They were a force to be reckoned with. When they finally encountered the orchestrator of this grim spectacle, the ensuing battle was swift and decisive. Creatures cowered and fled before Momen's might, while Ains dispatched those who stood in their way without hesitation. Yet even in the midst of battle, Ains's thoughts raced, weaving together the threads of this unfolding mystery. The silence after the confrontation was deafening, broken only by the rustling of the wind through the trees. Around them lay the remnants of the ambush, a grim testament to the darkness that had sought to envelop this peaceful land. Now, with the immediate threat neutralized, Ains turned his attention back to the puzzle. Whoever was behind this had managed to control even the monsters, a feat in itself. But why? And what was the true objective? These questions echoed in his mind. Finally, he let out a breath, his expression unreadable behind his helmet. "It seems we've been made pawns in someone else's game," he said quietly. The implication was clear. They weren't dealing with a lone madman or a pack of mindless beasts. This was the work of a mastermind. Someone was pulling the strings from the shadows, manipulating events to suit their own enigmatic purposes. As they continued their journey back to Irentel, Ains couldn't shake off the feeling that they were being watched, studied. Every step they took, every word they uttered was likely being recorded, analyzed. They weren't just adventurers anymore. They were specimens under observation, part of a grander, more sinister experiment. And as he pondered this, a slow, knowing smile crept onto his face. Meanwhile, tucked away in a secluded corner of the city, Hidden from prying eyes, a group of cloaked figures watched the proceedings unfold. With expressions concealed behind their hoods, they witnessed Momin's arrival and subsequent actions. Their hushed voices carried an undercurrent of urgency and intrigue. "What do we have here?" An adventurer of unusual caliber, one of them remarked, their voice raspy and low. "Indeed," another replied, "his strength is considerable, but his methods are peculiar." They had been observing Momin from a distance, piecing together his story, watching as he steadily gained prominence in a town. His exploits were nothing short of mesmerizing, but they couldn't understand why he chose to remain in this insignificant town. "Why does he stay here?" one of them asked, their tone laced with curiosity. "Patience, my friends," the leader finally spoke, their voice resonating with authority. "Let us see how far his fame spreads before making our next move." They decided to keep tabs on Momin, intrigued and slightly apprehensive about the whirlwind of change he seemed determined to bring. Ains returned to the hustle and bustle of Irantel, his mind already strategizing about his next move. The recent events had been a mere appetizer, a prelude to the main course, and he knew the spotlight was now firmly fixed on him. Back at the Adventurers Guild, the atmosphere was charged with excitement. The news of Momin's latest feat spread like wildfire through the ranks of the adventurers. And when he arrived, he was greeted with a flurry of congratulations and envious glances. Even the guild receptionist, who had initially been indifferent to his presence, couldn't help but acknowledge his growing notoriety. "Momin," she said with a newfound respect in her voice, "your reputation continues to grow. You've become quite the sensation around here." With a slight smile under his helmet, Ains accepted the praise gracefully, though his mind was far from the admiration of his peers. He had just received word that the guild had once again increased his rank, propelling him further into the limelight. It was a strategic move, one that he had subtly guided towards. By choosing to slay the monsters rather than capturing them for the guild and by refusing certain quests, he had created a narrative around his character. Momin was becoming more than just an adventurer. He was evolving into a legend. And Ains, the puppet master, was orchestrating this transformation with precision. Meanwhile, whispers of Momin's exploits were reaching far beyond the confines of Irantel, carrying with them the essence of fear and respect. Tales of his strength and enigma were like ripples spreading across a pond, touching the shores of other towns and cities. Some saw him as a hero, others as a harbinger of change, but all agreed on one thing: Momin was a force to be reckoned with. Ains stood before the mirror, his skeletal visage staring back at him, a stark reminder of the darkness that lay beneath his assumed identity. He ran a finger along the polished surface, a thoughtful frown creasing his brow. His movements were fluid, almost graceful despite his imposing form, a testament to years of practice and an inherent elegance in his undead stride. "You are brilliant, my lord." Nabi's voice broke through his concentration, echoing in the small chamber. "So brilliant," she repeated, a hint of awe in her voice. Ains turned slowly, his glowing red eyes meeting Nabi's eager gaze. Her tail swished excitedly, her feline ears twitching as she waited for his response. But Ains remained pensive, his mind still lost in thought. "Brilliant," he echoed softly, the word hanging in the air between them. He looked back at the mirror, his reflection distorted and haunting. "Let them fall in love with the name Momin," he said finally, his voice a low rumble, "so that when they learn who I really am, it will already be too late." As he uttered these words, the mask tightened on his face, blurring the line between actor and role. Momin was more than a persona. It was a weapon, a tool of fear and respect, and Ains intended to wield it with masterful precision. Nabe tilted her head, her emerald eyes filled with understanding. "A brilliant plan indeed, my lord," she purred, a wicked grin spreading across her face. "The fools of this world will adore the very cage that will lead to their doom." And as the night deepened, the shadows around them danced, mirroring the growing darkness in their hearts. The clock was ticking, the stage was set, and as the spotlight turned towards Nazareth, the game of domination was about to begin.